Everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Social Work and Health PDSP at West Lothian Council. I'm Councillor Anne McMillan and I chair this committee. The meeting is being broadcast live and the recording will be available afterwards through the Council's website. I'm being assisted today by Alison White and colleagues from Committee Services and IT. Attendees may be joining the meeting from another location. Everything said while the microphones are live will be broadcast and recorded, and members are asked to be polite, respectful and patient. There's more information, including a privacy statement about meeting arrangements, on the Council's website. And an agenda has been published showing the business for today's meeting. I will introduce each item and the Council officer will speak briefly about the report before councillors and committee attendees ask questions, have a discussion and make any decisions that may be required. Councillors might leave the meeting from time to time if they've declared interests that prevent them from taking part, and there'll be a pause while that happens and then they'll be invited back in for the next item of business. And if the meeting is a long one, then it might be adjourned temporarily for a meal break or a comfort break, and I will see if that is going to happen. I'll go on to the agenda now. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Veronica Smith, who Councillor Pauline were substituting. And Chair can also confirm that Councillors Craig, Nick and Sally Patel are connected to the meeting remotely.
Thank you. Is there any declarations of interest? Councillor Clark?
It's just a transparency statement, and I work part-time in the constituency office of Angela Constance MSP, but Angela's obviously also the Justice Minister, and I think it's worthwhile declaring that today.
Councillor Logue?
Yeah, it's just a transparency statement. I work for the NHS Lothian.
Thank you. Anyone else? I suppose my own transparency statement is I'm employed by Kirstine Sullivan, the Member of Parliament for Bathgate and Linlithgow. It's a transparency statement. The order of business as is on the agenda. Given the nature of the PDSP today and the item on the report, I'm going to ask everyone if they would to identify themselves and the organisations that they represent. I'm Councillor Anne McMillan and chairing the meeting, and I think I'll go clockwise.
Councillor Damien Doran-Timmerson.
Councillor Pauline Clark, Councillor for Falthouse in the Break Valley. Councillor Pauline Orr, Councillor for Linlithgow.
Brian Rain, Joint Forum of Community Councils.
Hi there, I'm Mike Niles. I'm the Chief Exec of Carers of West Lothian, and I'm here today as the Third Sector Rep.
Councillor Cohen.
Sorry, I thought I was a member of this panel.
Yeah, but I'm asking everyone to introduce themselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Tom Conn, a panel member.
Yeah. Is there anyone online that we have today?
Hi, Councillor Craig Meek for the Falthouse and Break Valley ward. Thank you.
And I'm Councillor Sally Patel. I'm an elected member for the Linlithgow ward.
Thank you. I think that's everyone then. Yeah. I have some opening remarks to make as chair, and it's regarding the meeting today. Today's meeting is an essential step in the process the Council has put in place to develop and agree its budget for 2026-27 and its longer-term financial plan. A consistent commitment has been given to bring information to PDSPs on the responses to the third phase of the Your Council, Your Say consultation. The public consultation will assist in the prioritisation and allocation of resources to activities that have the greatest impact, whilst ensuring balanced budgets for the remaining 2 years of the 5-year period to 2027-28. Considering this detail at PDSP meetings means that West Lothian residents and businesses can see what is being considered before Council makes its decisions about council tax and savings. It also means that the organisations and partners who are entitled to a seat at the PDSP table can take part in discussions, have their say and have their views noted and taken into account by councillors. The umbrella organisations entitled to send representatives to all PDSPs are the recognised trade unions, the Senior People's Forum, the Youth Congress, any recognised umbrella organisation representing the interests of community councils, the recognised voluntary sector interface in West Lothian, the Race Forum and the Faith Forum. Council leader has intimated that all elected members will be invited to PDSPs at which the responses to the consultation and budget setting for 2026-27 will be considered. PDSPs can agree to more participants, and I would suggest that the additional elected members in attendance at today's meeting be allowed to participate, and I trust that the panel are in agreement. Yes. There is a big picture about the Council's finances and the pressures on resources and services. Some of that is in the papers in front of the PDSP. However, it is hoped that this PDSP will concentrate more on the service issues that are relevant here so that they get the detailed consideration they deserve. That is the job that PDSPs have been asked to do. The Phase 3 consultation responses within the remit of the panel are set out in Appendix 2 of the report. Appendix 3 sets out the potential budget saving options for services within the remit of the panel. I would ask that you keep the following in mind as we go through them. First of all, the savings measures are not proposals that have been made by councillors. These are suggestions brought forward by council officers to try to help decisions that must be made to allow the council to balance its books. Secondly, none of these have yet been agreed. Decisions will have to be made by all councillors later in February. Some of these proposals may be approved and taken forward, and some of them might not go any further. We have council officers here today to take a note of the discussions and the points made by councillors and representatives taking part. There are no motions and amendments and voting at PDSPs. The points made through comments will be noted. They will then be used for a section in the full council budget setting report about the PDSP stage in the process. We'll go through the agenda in the usual way. I will introduce the report and ask the officers to speak to it. More than one officer might speak where there's a specialised issue involved. I'll then invite questions from everyone at the table in turn. If you have questions, then please make sure that you let me know. As well as the lead officer who will present the reports, there are officers present who will be able to answer questions about the saving measures and the detailed content of the report. After we've been through all these measures, I'll ask again if there's any more questions that might have been missed in the first round. From there, I'll ask for comments. Everyone will have a chance to have their say on the contents of the report. Comments made will be noted and reported to all elected members at the full council meeting when budgets will be agreed. Expressing your comments about the budget saving measures is the best way to influence the decisions later. I hope everyone will help the whole process through a constructive and respectful meeting. If anyone has any questions about the procedure or about what is to happen after the PDSP meeting, please let me know and I will invite the lead officer to explain the process. So, without further ado, I'll just go on to the agenda, and we're at item 4, which is the Revenue Budget Strategy 2026-27 and 2027-28. And I believe it's Joe that's taking us through this, Joe McPherson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present to PDSP detail in relation to potential savings options relevant to this panel that could contribute to addressing the Council budget gap for 2026-27 and 27-28. The report also presents information in relation to responses received from the West Lothian 2028 Phase 3 public consultation, with detailed information on consultation responses attached as appendices, alongside relevant integrated impact assessment and consumer duty initial impact assessment also produced as appendices. Recommendations to the PDSP are presented at Section B of the report. Section D1 of this report sets out relevant background in respect of the 5-year Revenue Budget Plan 2023-24 to 27-28 and notes that Council agreed in February 2025 that officers should consider options to address the remaining gap, with these options to be incorporated into the Phase 3 public consultation of 2025. Section D2 of the report updates the budget gap position as recently presented to Council Executive in terms of the Chancellor's Autumn Statement and 2026 Scottish Budget Report. Following officer review of budget model assumptions, the revised estimate budget gap is 15.4 million for the 2 years 2026-27 and 27-28, after deduction of previously agreed savings. Table 1 sets out the main elements of the budget model for these 2 years, detail of the revised budget gap for the 2 years before and after application of approved savings. It should be noted, Chair, that the estimated budget gap remains provisional as the local government finance settlement and Scottish Budget Bill process are ongoing and subject to change. Further financial budget risks and uncertainties are also noted within this section of the report. Section D3 of the report outlines the Council 3-phase public consultation approach, with this initially agreed at Council Executive in June 2022. The third stage of this public consultation engagement process and timelines were agreed at Council Executive on 14th of October 2025. 48 officer proposals grouped under 5 key themes were included in the public consultation process. The 5 themes are set out at Table 2 with associated number of comments returned. 10,051 responses were submitted in total, with 28,430 comments received. 6.6% of these comments received relate to the remit of the Social Work and Health PDSP, and Table 4 highlights the breakdown of these 1,857 comments across the 3 consultation options relevant to this PDSP. Officers have reviewed each comment and assessed the comment against 9 categories, ranging from respondent agreement to the proposal to a range of other categories, including disagreement. Detail of the outcome of this classification process is set out at Table 2 of the report and also further detailed at Appendix 2. Section D4 of the report outlines the saving options officers have determined after taking due consideration of consultation responses should progress to PDSP for scrutiny in advance of budget setting processes. The three savings options are a review of our business support service with an estimated full-time equivalent reduction of 3.2 FTE to deliver a budget saving of £200,000 in 27-28. If agreed, and to mitigate any risks, a full service review would take place in consultation with employees and trade unions in line with the Council's workforce management policies. Second saving option is a further review of commission services for children is proposed to deliver a saving of £200,000 in 27-28. If this is agreed, this will also involve a review of all commission services and grant funding with engagement with providers and service users potentially impacted. The review focus will be on efficiency and reprioritisation of commission services and grant allocations to align directly with our services priorities. This will also include review and benchmarking of all expenditure for transport costs. The third saving option is a review of our children and justice services that is proposed to deliver a budget saving of £250,000 in 27 and 28 with an estimated FTE reduction of 4.5. This proposal, if agreed, would involve a full-scale review of children's services, how these are aligned and structured, with close reference to our youth and adult justice services. A detailed review involving staff, trade unions, customer and partner engagement would be critical to ensuring the risk in delivering savings from demand-led statutory services could be managed. I would like to say, Chair, that this is much more than a saving measure. It is about setting up a service structure for children's services and a design that will manage the challenges and demands of the future. Appendix 3 to the report provides key summary detail of these potential savings proposals. Integrated impact assessments for the three options have been completed and are attached at Appendix 4, including initial assessment of consumer duty assessment requirements. If these options are agreed at Council budget setting, then all proposals demand detailed review work prior to implementation and a requirement for further ongoing revisement of all relevant impact assessments. I would conclude my presentation by noting that comments made at this PDSP this afternoon will be captured and considered when the updated revenue budgets for 26-27 and 27-28 are presented to Council for approval later this month. And Chair, I'm happy to take any questions. There may be some I will not be able to answer, but I have senior colleagues beside me who will be able to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jo. I'll open this up for questions now. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Jo, and thanks to everyone for the papers. They were really well laid out and easy to read and so much information. I suppose my first question is, it's going back to the whole removal or reduction in non-statutory services. I suppose not a lot of the non-statutory services do work in tandem or, and do support the statutory services. And with the removal of the non-statutory, it might be putting extra pressure on the statutory services. And do we take that into account when doing the reviews? And will that actually be costed? Is it possible to look at how that might actually impact the actual statutory services that we're proposing to keep?
Thank you very much. Firstly, in terms of our business support service, that is not a statutory service. You're very right in stating that. Nor is it a service that delivers care and support, but it does fulfil critical functions to support the operation of the service, particularly in relation to commissioning approaches. So the review that will take place if this measure is agreed will try and mitigate against any impact on our teams. In relation to commission services, there is a budget in scope which is around 4,200,000. So project is undoubtedly going to be a very challenging saving for us to deliver, because a range of our commission providers, our third sector providers, are providing highly critical services that will support us, and we will not be able to reduce the value of some of these contracts. We will have no intention of doing that, but we will be looking at all contracts and engaging with all providers to see if there is any efficiency, and we will have to look at any of the grant funded arrangements or any of the commission services that we cannot evidence that reduction is going to adversely impact on statutory services, and we will look at transport.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question, Chair. Obviously, the transport arrangements for looked after children is specifically mentioned. It's kind of just a sentence there, but how would that actually impact these children, and what would that look like for the parents?
So I would stress that that will be looked at. No decision has been made. We have a quite clear policy perspective that when children become looked after and placed in any of our care settings, that they will continue to be transported, usually by taxi transportation, to their school of origin, so that they keep their connections. It helps them manage with all the difficulties that they have in their lives. So we would be highly mindful of any changes that impact on children, but we have to look at the whole overall approach. We will benchmark with other local authorities in Scotland. We have statutory duties in relation to helping children and their families maintain contact. So our approach will be a thorough review which will look at all options. We've already reviewed our transport arrangements for looked after children. We've delivered efficiencies through that with the support of our operational services. So undoubtedly, again, this will be challenging, but it will be part of the picture of review, Chair.
So I suppose, would it be possible to get a description of that? So I'm thinking that I think in some adult services, we've reduced the maybe taxi services, and now people are being bused to their daycare centre or such like, which can impact obviously the amount of time they're able to spend in a particular place. Is that the sort of thing that we'd be looking at doing? Rather than using taxis, we'd be using buses or such like, or is it something completely different?
So it wouldn't be using buses. It would be really looking at the range of transport we provide, ensuring that we are practising really in line with the rest of Scotland. We would be looking to ensure that we were as efficient and organised in the commissioning of transport from taxi providers, again with the support of operational services, and it will be ensuring that we've got the right arrangements around the use of taxi provision in all circumstances. So it will be a full-scale review looking at all situations when taxi transportation is used in children's services, and that's the starting off point.
Yes. I've just got one or two other questions, I think. Trying to see if I can find it. So many papers, and I thought it was been well organised with my highlighting.
Councillor Clark, we can come back to you if you want to look, because it's obviously important that everybody here gets all the questions and comments in. So
yeah, I've got it now.
Are you okay now?
Yeah, I found it here.
Fine.
So just in the responding to demographic change, children and justice, social work and family support services workforce modernisation, and we're looking to reduce the full-time equivalents. Again, I might just be plucking this out of the air, and it's just maybe me putting two and two together and coming up with 5. But we introduced, now if I can remember the name of it, which I can't, is it Magic Notes and such the like, into our social work in children, families, etc. And it was deemed to be really successful, saving all the social workers and everybody else quite a lot of time and admin duties. But I suppose my question is, would we be looking at reducing staff because of the time saved, and in essence then that the value of that, introducing this of the AI type of services doesn't actually add any real value, although it may save us some money?
There's a staff group or an FTE number of around 246 FTE that would be in scope for this review, because what we are all very, very clear on is that for our children's services and our justice services, we are not just looking at one part of that system, because if we start to make changes in one part, we are likely to impact on the rest of it. And I think we are all of the view that it is a time where our structure, how we have set up our services, needs review. And we expect and we are confident that we can manage the reduction of 4.5 FTE without significantly impacting on our statutory duties. We are confident about that, and the approach that we will take to that review will be as inclusive as possible with all of our teams, with our partners, with the people who use our services. Thank you.
Certainly. Councillor Damien Dorntinson, please.
Chair, thank you. If we can take us to 1F and the statement that duplication may be reduced. Can you give me, well, is there much duplication in this area? And can you give me examples of what kind of duplication there are?
So these were comments, as I understand, that were made in the public consultation, but certainly there is limited duplication. But in terms of our review approach across all of these measures, we will be looking at any opportunities to remove duplication if any exists, Chair.
To follow up on that, we have an identified saving in that. Are we confident that kind of saving can be made?
Yes, we are confident. All of the savings that we have presented obviously have challenges and they have risks, but we are confident because of the review processes that we will undertake for all that we will be able to deliver the savings and we will manage the impact as best we can.
Thank you for all that, Jo. And with regards to risk, if you could just elaborate a little bit on that, and is any kind of that risk to a third party that they don't want to deliver the service they're currently delivering? Could that be further down the line with this?
In terms of the commission services?
Commission services.
So of course there are risks for our providers, and all of our commission providers have a contract link officer who works with them. We will have a very clear approach to engagement with all providers, but undoubtedly there will be risk. There will be risk if we are reducing some of our funding arrangements. There could be risk to the future viability of providers, and that's why our officers and economic development service officers will provide support, advice and guidance to any providers, not only on other sources of funding but potential changes to operation and models of delivery.
Okay, thank you. That's all from me. Thanks, Jo.
Thank you. Any further questions from anyone? Could I ask, Jo, I know we have these are proposals and they haven't been agreed, they have to go to the budget meeting at some point for all the councillors to agree. So yeah, thanks Alison. I just wanted to check if all of these or any of these proposals are agreed, as they're taken on board and worked on, will there be detailed reports on any of them that are agreed coming back here to this PDSP on a regular basis?
Thank you, Chair. We would be very happy to do that. None of the proposals that we have put forward would require further governance approval arrangements, but we would be very happy, as we always have been, to report on progress on the delivery of any savings agreed measure at PDSP and allow that proper scrutiny and transparency.
Thank you. Councillor Orr.
Thanks, Chair. Just got one wee question here, and it's around looked after children. By undertaking these reviews, are there any risks in relation to meeting our obligations to the likes of the promise or any of the other legislations that come within the scope of your service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. We're incredibly mindful of not just our statutory duties, but all of the key policy drivers and all of our own ambitions and hopes for children and families that we support. And I think we are all confident that we will manage the review process in such a way that we will mitigate the risks of harm from any of the savings options that we are progressing.
Thanks, Jo. Thank you.
Mike Niles, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jo, for all that. It's kind of to follow on from Councillor Doran-Timson's comment. It's reassuring to hear there's no intention to reduce any of the contracts in the third sector, but obviously 200,000 is a significant potential saving. And while it says, no FTE staffing reduction, that will potentially have an impact on staffing in the sector. Will that form part of the impact assessment at a later stage to see what impact that will have on third sector workforce?
Firstly, if I can perhaps just absolutely clarify that we will review all commission services and all contracts. Clearly, as I stated, there are a range of providers that we are working with, that we commission services from, and the services they are providing are highly critical and key to our strategic objectives. In terms of the impact on FTE, I'll perhaps pass, if that's possible, Chair, to Sharon Houston in terms of whether that impact would be considered in our impact assessment. Certainly it would be in terms of our management of relationships, but in terms of legally.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose when we're looking at the integrated impact assessment, we wouldn't necessarily reflect those particular challenges there. What I can give assurance of, though, is that, as Jo has articulated, the link officers work very closely. All of the organisations that we contract with or have a commissioning arrangement with, they're all very different in their own right. So it's a very different approach and a person-focused approach that we take to each of them. So we would be working with the organisation. We'd aim to do it in a partnership-focused way, which is how we've approached other efficiencies, and working with the organisations to look at how they can reshape their models, look at income generation, etc., and look at other models of how they deliver their services. Ultimately, that would obviously include their particular staffing structure, etc.
Do you have a follow-up, Mike? No? Okay. Have you come back in? Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is, and maybe this is the wrong time to ask it, but it's more of a generic question. Just for my understanding, and I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then despite the 2.9% uplift from the government, I think it's gone up to 15.4 deficit. So I think that's around a 5.7 million difference. And I guess my question is, what were we expecting the uplift to be? Because to have hit that 9.7 million, we would have had to have had a 38% uplift from the government. So it's just more of a generic question.
Yeah, okay. Mike, I think that's kind of a question that would need to be answered by our with Alistair, our head of finance. I'm just checking if he's available, and we can see if we can get an answer to that. Okay. We're just a way to check. Wait. Okay. While we're waiting to see if Alistair's available, is there any other questions that we could that anybody would like to ask? Failing that, we'll just have 5 minutes while we check to see if Alistair's available. I don't see any questions, so if we can take 5 minutes, thanks. Mike, could you ask the question again now that Alistair's here and see if we can get an answer for you? Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Chair. And apologies, I didn't mean to. It was more just a generic question, really. So seeing on the papers that and it's not, again, for the approval process, but it was sort of stating that prior to the Scottish Government's announcement, there was a projected deficit of 9.7 million. And then with the 2.9%, I believe, uplift in revenue settlement, that increased to 15.4 million deficit. So it was just for understanding of that 5.4 million gap, I guess. In order to have achieved the 9.7, we would have been expecting around 38% uplift. So just how those projections were originally landed on.
Next, to the settlement, the local government sector across Scotland is facing significant increasing pressures. So we, as part of that, had factored in our planning assumptions what those additional cost pressures could be. In the consultation that was set out earlier in the year, we indicated the scale of that challenge and the need to be taken forward various savings options to be able to meet the increased gap that we would face. What we took at that point was the 9.7 million gap. That was from the financial model that was brought to Council in February 2025 as part of the budget setting process, so it hadn't been updated from that point in time. What we've done since we got the Scottish settlement is that we brought in the additional income to our income side of the model, and then we've gone through each of the expenditure lines, staffing, demographics, consequences of capital, inflation indexation, and we've updated each of these lines to reflect the cost pressures to offset against the 12 million in additional income. And that's what takes us from the 9.7 to the 15.4 million gap that we now face. COSLA had indicated what their overall assessment of pressures across Scotland look like. And just to give further context to that, they had asked for a settlement of 16 billion. That comprised 750 million for social care and 250 million to address wider pressures that councils are facing. The settlement that's been received amounts to 15 billion. So it's 750 million short of the total social care pressure that was indicated by COSLA. In terms of our gap, and I set out in a paper to Council Exec earlier this week, the various pressures that take us from the 9.7 up to the 15.4. So once you take into account the Scottish settlement monies, running through the pressures, we've got pay awards, social policy demographics, social policy unfunded pressures, school demographics. We've got non-domestic rates pressures, we've got insurance premiums and so on. So it's the combination of those set against the increased income that moves us from our 9.7 to our 15.4 just now. I'm happy to discuss that in more detail, but that's the context alongside the national picture and the assessment that COSLA made, which is consistent with the assessment that you see coming through our numbers.
Do you have a follow-up, Mike? Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Hi, Alistair. I suppose it's everyone trying to understand where all these pressures come from is really it's really quite difficult, I think, for us that are not of an accountancy type background. But I think, and I don't know if you would agree that one of the main factors, or perhaps the actual main factor, has been high inflation and high interest rates have affected councils up and down the length and breadth of Great Britain, and that's really what has been pushing the costs that have amounted to us being under so much pressures. Do you think that's a fair summary?
Just before you come in there, Alistair, I would point out that we are trying to stick to what's in the report. I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Clark, but I'm not wanting to do a rehearsal for our budget meeting later on in the month. But no, if Alistair can answer that on the inflation, that's fine. I'm just making the comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, inflation indexation is one of the key drivers in what moves us from the 9.7 to the 15.4. Just now in the budget model summary, you can see the impact of inflation and indexation as a whole as it impacts on the council, alongside the various other pressures that the council faces too.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions around the report? Anybody thought of anything else? I can't see anybody coming in. Can I ask then if anybody has any comments on the report in front of them? Councillor Orr, Pauline.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to thank Jo and her team really for bringing this report to PDSP today. It's well thought out in its presentation. It's very clear and it's succinct. And I acknowledge the challenges that you and your team are facing. And I just want to say thank you to you and your team for all that you have done in recent challenging years, and for everything that you endeavour to continue to be doing in these very, very difficult circumstances. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the report? No? I would echo that and thank you so much, Jo and the team, for bringing this forward. And it is detailed, and we can understand it. And I thank all the members of the panel for their input here, and questioning the proposals in the background to them. So if there's no further comments on this, I would just like to reiterate what the recommendation is, and I'll just, the recommendation is simply for us to note the outcome of the West Lothian 2028 Your Council, Your Say Phase 3 consultation, and the comments is set out in the appendices 1 and 2. Note the updated revenue budget gap of 15.4 million after application of previously agreed budget saving measures, and demonstrating the challenging financial position continuing to face the council. Recommendation 3 notes the offers saving options relevant to the remit of the panel is set out in Appendix 3 of the report. Recommendation 4 notes the integrated relevance assessments for all proposed savings options and integrated impact assessments where the options are assessed as having a potential impact on a protected group or characteristic, and that was set out in Appendix 4. And lastly, Recommendation 5 notes that following the conclusion of the PDSPs to consider potential savings options, the Director of Finance and Property Services will present an updated 2-year revenue budget strategy for 2026-27 and 2027-28 to full council in February 2026. Everyone agreed to the recommendations? Thank you. And thanks everyone for your attendance today, and everyone online as well. Thank you.